evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Richard. In a sense, disclosure has been going on for a long time. But for many people, it's been a personal experience, that disclosure. And that certainly happened to me on the 8th of July 1964, when I was on my way to school one sunny morning in the company of two of my friends, and we happened to see 3 flying saucers. At the time, I paid very little attention to the subject, but one of my friends, in fact the younger of the 2 friends, said immediately flying saucers, and I turned around to him and I said, I don't think flying saucers exist, but I changed my mind in the next 60 seconds, thankfully. Because it was obvious that here were 3 flying saucers forming a triangular pattern as they moved very, very slowly in the sky. And I'm talking now about southwest London, not very far from the flight path in and out of Heathrow Airport. These objects moved so slowly that it became apparent to me that they had some kind of gravitational control, which you couldn't achieve with a circular shape. You can throw a frisbee, of course, in the sky, that's a circular shape, but we're talking about objects that were much larger than that. So what happened to me on that day taught me several things. Number one, it taught me that there are indeed flying discs that can fly in the atmosphere of Earth. Number two, that if I, a little me, could see these, then what about all the other people who have seen them, including military pilots, scientists, and so on. And I also discovered something else. They maintain that formation, so not only did they give you the impression of great power and force, but I felt in the presence of something holy. So these were not just machines, they were holy machines. And I'm spelling holy with H-O-L-Y, in case I'm mispronouncing that word. I discovered something else, ladies and gentlemen. I discovered that it is possible to have a telepathic communication with the intelligences behind flying saucers. So that date, the 8th of July 1964, was a remarkable date for me personally, a turning point in my life, and indeed my UFO disclosure. And there are many hundreds and thousands of people throughout the world who have had experiences like this and would vouch for it and would tell you, you know, that's my story, take it or leave it. After all, you can't be convinced of anything unless you are present. If you're present yourself, then you can say, I can vouch for that myself, it's a personal experience. But you can't vouch for somebody else taking a photograph, for example. We know there have been a lot of fake photographs of flying saucers and so forth. So this disclosure has been around for a long while, even in the 50s and 60s, when Major Donald Kehoe was writing his books about the flying saucers. The United States Air Force was split into 2 camps. There's one camp that wanted to reveal the information to the public there and then, and the other camp that said, no, you mustn't do that. Now they got themselves into this strange situation where they don't know how to get out of this impasse, because they've held all this information back. You're aware that the United States Air Force Project Blue Book closed down in 1969 based upon the advice given to it by the University of Colorado study. That study was a whitewash. There's no other way to describe it. When people look back upon it, at that time, while the University of Colorado was studying the subject of flying saucers, there were flying saucers appearing over Air Force bases, over intercontinental ballistic missiles, and downing these missiles, taking them into a state of no-go. And the investigator from the University of Colorado, who was sent to investigate these, backed away, because the US Air Force told him, keep away from these sites. This is none of your business. So the recent press conference that was held at the National Press Club had at least half a dozen former military personnel come and admit to these occurrences at these Air Force bases. I'm talking about Maelstrom Air Force Base, Minot Air Force Base, Loring Air Force Base, Wordsmith Air Force Base, all of these Air Force bases in the US that had nuclear weapons, primed and ready for war, for mass destruction. You know, nuclear weapons are, after all, weapons of mass destruction. That's what they are. And it's extremely rich for countries to turn around now and attempt to convince you that the flying saucers are here for nefarious purposes, they're going to invade us, and etc., etc. You know. So if we need to be afraid of anything, we need to be afraid of ourselves and maybe the bacteria that are around us, not some advanced intelligent species that has been coming to this planet. And they haven't gone away. Just to prove to you that they haven't gone away, I have a brief report here of a sighting that happened in England in May 2004. The witness was Michael with his girlfriend Rennie. At 11:50 on Saturday the 22nd of May 2004, they had just left the Heathrow Club in Hayes, Middlesex. They'd been to a freestyle Serok dance, and as they walked to the car park they looked up in the sky, as he normally does, because he likes to prove to his girlfriend Rennie that you can spot satellites in the sky, because she thought you can't see satellites with your naked eye. And they see two red lights that came towards him, and he had one of the most amazing opportunities to observe the underside of a flying saucer at night. He observed the colours very, very carefully, and he became quite obsessed with this. He contacted me. I convinced him to write his report down. Not only that, I convinced him to try and draw what he saw, and this is what he came up with. This is his own painting of the underside of a flying saucer that was seen in Hayes in 2004. This is one of the most detailed colour descriptions I've ever seen. This is a painting, not a photograph. He's not, as Michael will admit, he's not much of an artist, although his girlfriend Rennie is an artist, but unfortunately she was not wearing her glasses that evening, so she didn't quite see these as clearly as he did. But he went to the effort to make this painting, and I said to him, write your report down, because it's useful for posterity. People can read your report and understand what you went through, and because he wrote the report down, he feels that a great weight has come off his chest. He felt that he had seen something that he shouldn't have seen, and yet he was in the right place at the right time, and he and his girlfriend did see these objects. So, ladies and gentlemen, disclosure may happen to you on an individual basis. I don't know when. It may already have happened to you. But when it does, have no fear. Have no fear. Keep control of your mind, and if possible, attempt a telepathic